Hello everybody, welcome to Midwest Imagery. I've been showing you how to make better pictures with your DSLR, and we have learned about the exposure triangle, and we've learned about metering for exposure and setting the controls. I've shown you some rules of composition and examples of composition at work, and these three elements are the foundation for any kind of photography that we want to do. So it's fairly important that we understand the relationship between these three elements. Today I'm going to talk about light and how it can affect your images. So give me a few seconds to get set up and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back talking about light. And light can be described by several different descriptors. When we talk about light, we sometimes talk about the color of the light, or we sometimes talk about the direction of the light, the quality of the light, the availability of light, and the degree of diffusion of the light. Changes in lighting will change your picture. Outdoors, if clouds darken the sky, or you change position so that your subject is lit from behind, or you move from a bright area into the shade, your images will change as a result. Light can affect the feeling of an image so that it appears brilliant and crisp, or hazy and soft, harsh or smooth. And if you make a point of observing the light on your subject, you'll soon learn to predict how that light will affect your images, and you'll find it easier to use existing light or to arrange the lighting yourself. In the golden hours, it often involves lower light, slower shutters, maybe wider apertures, or higher ISOs even. It's usually a very even, soft light with long shadows. Here's an example of a golden light picture. This is a 3-shot HDR. High dynamic range is what HDR stands for. I made one picture at the indicated exposure, and one picture, one underexposed, and the third picture, one overexposed. And that just gives us shadow detail, mid-tone detail, and highlight detail. And then when I sandwich them all together and polish it up a little bit in Photoshop. But what we see here, my horizon line is low, leaves us with a big sky. I've got leading lines here, this road taking us through the scene. The utility poles are also acting as leading lines. The sun is just dropping beneath the clouds, golden rays coming from the sun and coloring the road in front here also. It's a very quiet scene at the end of the day. Here's another HDR shot. The light is very golden, sun is just above the horizon. It's casting soft light everywhere. We're transitioning from golden to blue. There's a little bit of golden light yet still in the background, and this also appears as a quiet picture. I made this picture on Mackinac Island. Even though I'm at 2.8, we have great focus from here all the way to my subject here, because as our distance to our subject increases, so does our depth of field. I would have been metering in this area right here so that the sky was correctly exposed, leaving all the foreground trees in silhouette. I'm using 125th of a second because that was my indicated exposure on a tripod, and I really didn't need a tripod, but I needed both my hands to swat the mosquitoes that were trying to carry me off here. Here's some golden light. This is a backlit shot of a cross being installed as a finishing touch on top of a remodeled dome of a cathedral. And I'm on top of a building looking into this in the early morning, and I'm metering on the sky because I don't want this sky to be blown out, and instead I want this to be in a silhouette. Direct or midday light. Midday sun is bright, hard, and flat, and midday light is more contrasty. than early morning or late afternoon light is. But that contrast can do some pretty cool stuff for you too. This picture was made in directly midday sun. It's very hard light. The shadows are sharp edged and very pronounced. We see this little shadow defining this area here. Overall, even though it's in hard contrasty light, there's a softness to it. Here's some more hard light. It was about midday. We can see by the shadow coming almost straight off of this subject. But there's something in this picture that's always bothered me, and I leave it in so that I can see if you can spot where that troublesome spot is for me. And you can go ahead and just let me know what you think before I let you know what it is. But I find that it was intruding on the picture, because overall for me this shot is very quiet. Did you see that right there? I'll point it out to you in case you missed it. Watch where the cursor is. I don't like that sailboat in there, so I took it out. Here's some more hard light. These antelope were crossing in front of us, and notice the sun falling straight on top of their back. The shadows are right under them. Hard, hot light. I'm metering on the grass. Even in harsh, direct sunlight, this makes a decent picture. Dusk or night, the absence of direct light. Usually you'll have longer shutter speeds. They will require a sturdy tripod or another base that you can set your camera on, and a cable or remote release. If you don't have either of those two, you can always use your self-timer on your camera, or hold the camera steady as you can and make the shot and see what happens, because sometimes that camera shake or blur will be compelling. Here's a shot made in dusk. The sun is down past the golden hour. Now we're into the blue hour. This shot wasn't working for me until I turned this light on. We're doing a prairie burn, and this is a shot that I made at night. f2.8, 100 ISO, quarter of a second. This shot is 3 images stacked on top of each other. I made them at 481, 486, and 507 seconds. And we can see this by the length of the star trails. There's a short one, a little bit longer, and even longer yet. Look how bright this is. There's shadow under here because the moon had come out, and that's casting our shadow here. We see a little bit of shadow here, but not anywhere else. And there's a little thing that bothers me about this shot too. When I was setting up, I had everything set up, fine, everything, and I'm midway in between my first exposure, and a car drives through here, and you can see his taillights right there. It went very slow, because this is like in the middle of nowhere, and we hadn't seen anybody until I put my camera out. And then the headlights were lighting up these reflective surfaces here, and then it would back up. So I'd stop and I'd wait and wait and wait, and then nothing happened, so I'd make another exposure, and then the car would go through again. So I just left it in there. I mean, I can take this out, but as time passes, I don't really mind seeing that little trail in there. Here's one that was made at dusk. The sun had just about gone down, and we were stranded in this tiny little town with some time to kill. So I wandered around and I found this elevator and made this shot. Dusk. 1 second exposure, 5.6 ISO 200. I'm metering on the sky because I want the sky to keep all the detail in here. And then that allows me to pull out the highlights in all of these ryegrass seed heads here. This is the same place where we were stranded. The sun had gone down. There's no shadows. You can't see any shadows around here. As a matter of fact, I had to shine my flashlight on her so that my camera would focus. And we see trails from passing cars on the highway up here. Nighttime. This was close to midnight on Christmas one year, and it started to snow, so I wanted to get a shot of some Christmas snow on the old homestead. There's something in this image that bothers me. Can you tell what it is? Because once you see it, it'll probably make this picture better for you too. It's this little branch right here is bugging me because it makes my eye want to stop right here instead of traveling all the way down here, so I just took it out. Here's one I was doing a class on how to turn night into day and show people how to make these ghosting images. So I have this at a 15-second exposure, f11, 200 ISO. And what I'm doing is releasing my shutter, and then I'll count to 7 or 8, and then walk out in front of my camera and strike a pose. And then for the other remaining 7 or 8 seconds, then I'm not standing there long enough to register, so it looks like I'm a ghost. And it doesn't hurt, this shot, that I happen to be standing outside of the Casper Center for Paranormal Studies. I'm doing a class on night photography and motion, and as the class was ending, I was getting a ride back from one of the participants and made this shot through the windshield of the car as we're driving down this deserted road. This picture was at an art installation of lighting. This one looked pretty cool because all these LED light bulbs dangling down looked like they were pouring down, so hence the name, Light Rain. In this shot, we had just arrived a few hours earlier at Furnace Creek, and I set it up because the sky was great, nice blue color here, and just the gentlest of breezes made our branches move a little bit, which is kind of nice in this picture. It's quiet and empty, but there's still a lot of movement and motion in here. This one is a picture of the Milky Way at night, 20 seconds. And I left this building in here to show a kind of a comparison between the immensity surrounding us and where we're actually living in our space. There's a star falling from the sky here, and I don't know if you can see it on this or not, but there's another one falling from here as well. Direction of light is important because of the shadows, specifically those shadows that are visible from your camera's position. Light, except for the most diffuse sources, casts shadows that will emphasize texture and volume or diminish them. Backlighting comes towards the camera from behind the subject. Shadows are cast toward the camera and are prominent with the front of the subject in shadow. Backlighting can make translucent objects seem to glow and can create rim lighting, a bright outline around the subject. Here's an example of backlighting. Notice the rim light making her hair translucent. Light sources behind her. We could see a little bit of light on the underside of her arm here, but it overall makes a nice soft glow about her face because of the backlighting. Here's another example of backlighting. We can see this nice rim light on the edge here, and there's some little bit back here on her hair. The light source is right over here, nice and hazy and soft. Here's an example of backlighting. For this picture, I was metering on the subject, and that blew the sky out. But that's okay. I mean, this shot works. The only thing that is bothering me about this is this car drove through when I was making this picture. The next one I'm doing here, I metered on the sky in this area here and did this shot. Now, and I did this shot because the previous shot shows the sun tucked under her elbow, so I wanted to get this sun rays popping through here too, and as well, metering on this sky gives us backlighting on this subject, but it also, look at what it does for all these seed heads everywhere. It just changes the whole dynamic of the picture. You can get backlit shots through fall colored leaves like this one. Light's just pouring right through them. Here's a little red-tailed hawk. She had a feather stuck on her toe that was bugging her. She's telling us a fish story here. And look at the backlighting coming through her wings and her tail. You can even see the outline of her skin. Side lighting comes toward the side of the subject and the camera. Shadows are prominent, sideways, cast at the side of the subject, which can tend to emphasize texture and volume. You see side lighting in early morning and late afternoon. Here's a picture of some early morning side light. Notice all the shadows are horizontal. Notice how all the detail is accentuated from this early morning side light falling on this monument. Late afternoon side light, all of the shadows are going horizontal again, very soft and very smooth. It gives us a nice feel to the image and a nice quietness to it. Side light portrait, light coming in from a window, falling on this child's face and her hair, also lighting up the bouquet in the background for a splash of color, some balance in the entire shot. Front lighting comes from behind the camera toward the subject. The front of the subject is evenly lit, minimal shadows are visible. Surface textures are seen clearly, but volume and textures are less pronounced than they would be in side lighting. Front lighting, the sun is behind your back, falling on your subject. Take a moment before you begin to see how the light affects your subject. A clear sunny day creates bright highlights and dark hard-edged shadows. On an overcast day, at dusk, or in the shade, the light will be soft and diffused. The degree of diffusion, also referred to as the quality of the light. Direct light creates hard-edged dark shadows, and the sun on a clear day is a source of direct light. But diffuse light scatters onto the subject from many directions. It shows little or no directionality, and the shadows, if present at all, are light. Shadow edges are indistinct, and subjects seem surrounded by light. Here's a diffused light shot. Light was coming from every direction. You couldn't tell where the horizon began or stopped. This light made this scene nice and soft. There's a soft shadow underneath this spruce tree, but we don't see shadows anywhere else because of the diffuse quality of the light. Here's another diffused light shot. These fiddleheads coming up in the springtime with this diffuse light pouring in through the tree canopy. In this shot with diffused light, we can see very soft shadow edges under this eave, and that's about the only place we see shadows anywhere else in this shot. I was on my lawnmower, and I was able to get, as long as that mower was running, within like 20 feet of this buck. He was interested in this doe that was hiding in some shrubbery nearby, and like I said, as long as I stayed on my lawnmower, I could get really close to him, and I made this shot. Here's another diffused light shot. It was actually raining here, and I'm laying in a puddle on my belly, suffering for my art to make this shot. You can see there's no shadows anywhere. The light is bright, but it's not directional. We can't really tell where it might be coming from, but it's still fairly even over the entire scene. In this diffuse shot, it's trumpeter swan on the edge of the ice. It was partially snowing. There's a island in the lake back here that is so diffuse light that you can barely see it, and there's another one right here that is very difficult to see. But this makes a nice high-key shot where we're mostly bright tones in this, mostly highlights in this, balanced by the color of the water. Here's another diffuse shot. Fog was rolling in, and if you look closely enough and squint just right, maybe squint maybe a little right, you can see the outline of buildings on the far shore here. But overall, the absence of direct light makes this a very soft and hazy looking shot, and also creates a mood of maybe quiet or solitude or silence. This picture was done in existing light, but while I was making this, I couldn't help but notice that this picture on the wall already had this picture that I was making in it. Not only that, but the picture in the picture on the wall in the picture is the same as the picture that I'm making. Now, how, I wonder, did that happen? Here's salt flats on the Death Valley, cloudy as we can see in this image, and soft diffuse light, no real direction that it's coming from, but still it gives us nice texture and detail in this image. Here's a real diffuse light shot. I made this through a window. It had been snowing, and this is a path, and this is a path, and this is a driveway. The light is super soft and diffuse. It creates another nice diffuse shot. Directional diffuse light appears to come from a definite direction and creates distinct shadows, but with softer edges than those of direct light. Shadow edges change smoothly from light to dark, and the shadows tend to have visible detail. Like this picture of these two fawns. Where's the light coming from in this image? Obviously we see this fawn is bright and this fawn on this side is dark, but we see light on this side of it. And if we look at this fence post, we can see shadow coming down here, so it tells us our light is coming in from this direction, but still gives adequate light for this scene. In this directional diffused light, we can see our source is back in here, and it's falling through the forest and softly illuminating this foreground of all these roots on this trail in the woods. These are a few examples of what light can do for our image. I'm going to stop here for today, so give me a couple of minutes to take this down and I'll be right back. Okay, that's a little bit about light and how it can affect the pictures that you make. We can see that different lighting will have different effects and create different moods in your pictures too, so keep practicing, look around, see how the light is falling on your shots and how you want to make it look, and make a bunch of test shots and see how they turn out. The worst thing that can happen is you just have to delete them, and that's the beauty about digital, is we can make 1,000 shots, and if we don't like any of them, we just delete them and keep practicing. I also want you to know that if I can do this, make these pictures that I make, you can do the very same thing. All right? So that's going to do it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.